All right. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining me. We'll go ahead and get started here. If you got your questions, go ahead and post them. Should be below the video if you're on a smaller screen, or to the right of the video if you're on a larger screen. All right. So let's see if we got some questions in here. All right. So it looks like we got one here from Willis. Says, does the right palm face downward through impact, like wiping a table and petting your dog, or does it face more toward the target? Is this part of the straight line release or maybe compression line? It's part of the straight line release. If you go to literally what's happening, it's pointing more toward the target. Because if you look at most tour players, when you come into contact, right, our hands are usually going to be about in front of the lead thigh. So if I go this impact position and then I stop, and if you look at where my palm's pointing, it's pointing down toward the ground, toward the target a little bit, right? It's not like this, right? Because if I was like this, right, if it was really down toward the ground completely, it'd be that. So what Clay talks about in the straight line release course, he actually has a drill that's called pet the grass, right? Where we're getting the feeling that we're coming in and we're petting that grass as we come through. So that's not literally what's happening, right? But that's a great feel to help you there, because most people have the palm kind of pointing up to the sky a little bit. Most people come in and they're early releasing, right? So if I'm here and now I take my hand off the club, see my palm's actually pointing up a little bit, right? So I want to have the feeling that my palm is pointing down as much as I can. Now, if you're in a situation where you just have too much shaft lean, you get that shaft lean way forward, you're not really getting the ball up in the air because you have so much shaft lean, then that's not a good feel for you, right? But that's pretty rare. I very rarely see that, when I'm giving lessons and stuff like that. Most of the time, what I'm seeing is an early release where the hands either the palms kind of more either straight up and down or actually pointing up the sky a little bit as they're coming into contact, right? So getting that feeling of it pointing down as much as you can help you to get that club to release more up front. So if you want to check out that pet the grass drill, it's in the straight line release course. You can click the instruction tab, then you can click the Tasvigal system from there, and then from there you can click the straight line release course. I don't know what level it's in. I can double check that. Let's see here. Bear with me here. It's actually in level 1. Yeah. Yep. So level 1, it's the 1.4 in level 1. It's the fourth. Actually, it's the fifth video because there's a 1.35 in there as well. But yeah, check out that video if you want more information on that. But yeah, that's a feel. It's not literally what's happening, but it's a great feel for most people to have to help you to get that shaft link. And it helps in a couple ways, right? So one is getting that wrist bent back, but also we're having the feeling of petting the grass, right? So what does that help with? Well, that helps with, we got to get low too. If I'm going to pet the grass, I'm going to have to, flex my hips, push my hips back and my chest down to be able to do that. I'm not going to be able to pet the grass from way up here. If I'm wanting to pet the grass, I'm going to have to get down. So that's what I'm going to need to do when I'm coming down here, right? Is I'm going to need to get down low. If I stand up tall, right, and I have my wrist bent back, well, I'm not going to get to the ground. I'm going to have to release the club to get to the ground. So I need to feel like I'm going down, right? And I'm having that wrist bent back and have that feeling that I'm petting the grass. All right. So we got another question here from John B. Says, why does it appear that when pros are doing practice swings, they are swinging from outside in, as though they are preparing to hit a big fade? Often then they step to the ball and hit a draw. What are they rehearsing? Well, they're probably rehearsing a feel. And it's not all pros that do this, but I have seen what you're talking about. What they're doing is they're just rehearsing a feel, right? They're probably, and this is something that happens with pros, where they end up they get so good at shallowing out the club that they end up actually over shallowing out the club. So they need to pair that up with more rotation through the shot. And what you're seeing there is just a feeling of more rotation, right? Because a lot of times they just get that club shallowing out too much, and then they get that two-way miss. They get the path working too much from the inside. That's going to lead to blocks out to the right for the right-handed golfers, and then or an overdraw. So they need to feel rotation paired with that to get that path to neutralize a little bit. So, whenever you see a tour player doing stuff like that, they're doing an exaggerated rehearsal of what of a feel that they're trying to create. There's a viral video of Tiger, where he was working on, he must have been early extending a little bit. So he was actually doing a rehearsal where he was kind of going like this, right? Really pushing those hips back and flexing those hips to start the downswing. Now, would you literally want to do it that much? Of course not. But if you watch him as he goes through it, like he actually kind of puts his hand right here and then does that because he's really trying to push that hip back, really flex those hips and push that hip back out of the way. So when he went to hit the ball, it just looked like a normal swing, but he was trying to exaggerate a feel. So that's one thing that I often tell, online students and stuff is that one of the keys to changing your swing or getting something to change your swing is to exaggerate what you're trying to change as much as possible. Exaggerate it so much that you're actually going too far on the other end of the spectrum, right? So that's like what they're doing. If they're getting the club to work too much from the inside, they're over shallowing out the club, then they need to feel like they're actually coming over the top. That doesn't mean that that's what they're actually going to do. That means what they need to feel. It's a feel. Golf, a lot of what golf is and getting better at golf is adjusting your feel to get the desired result that you want, right? So that's essentially what they're doing there. Because you got to look at it this way. If you exaggerate it, if you overdo it, if you really literally overdo it, you can just tone it down a little bit to get to where you want to be. It's much easier to do that as opposed to just trying to do exactly what you're trying to do, right? And not really getting there. But what usually happens when you really exaggerate it is you just get closer to where you want to be. And like I said, if you overdo it, then you can just tone it down more easily toward more what you're comfortable with, right? So that would be one of my biggest advices. I think a lot of people are work on their swing and they just try to get the exact movement. And really, if you could do that already, you would already be doing it, right? So that's why, with a lot of things, especially when things are moving very fast, right? You got to really, really exaggerate to get it to change. All right, keep the questions coming here. All right, eye itching for some reason. All right, so John B says, when we take the club back, do we do it with our shoulders or start with our arms? And should we be keeping the club face closed all the way through the backswing? So you're going to be opening up the face as you kind of rotate your arms, right? but it's going to be more shoulders, right? Because if we go arms, right, then what's going to happen is my trail arms are going to kind of fold up early, right? I don't want that to happen. So I want to be more shoulders in the beginning here, and then as you kind of rotate your forearms, your face is going to open, right? So the face is going to open, but you're going to rotate your forearms back. So it's not like you're keeping that club face closed, right? If I did that, then my backswing would kind of look like this, right? I have to rotate my forearms to get the club to be in a good spot. So in that rotation of the forearms, right, that's going to, if I rotate my forearms, you can see how that opens up the face, right? So I have to rotate my forearms as I get up to the top, and that opens up the club face. We don't necessarily want to be doing that with our wrists, right? I don't like this motion where I'm twisting the club face, right? Because that gets that. Now, if you're good at getting that back, that's one thing, but most people aren't. Most of the recreational golfers that I see who twist that face open will tend to come over the top in the start of the downswing to get the club face to point more toward the target as they're coming through. I don't see a lot of, I'm not sure if I've seen any recreational golfers in general where they roll that face open and then they get it to really roll back down in the downswing without coming over the top. It's usually the rolling of the face open is going to either lead to an over the top open club face or something like that. So John B says, I have heard that we should try to move our hands to our left pocket as we approach the contact point and follow through. What do you think about that? That's more of a feel. Honestly, that's not literally what you're doing. Your hands are moving around your body. But yeah, I mean, your hands should be working around your body, right? So my hands should be kind of working around like this, but my hands aren't literally doing this, right? My hands are working around my body. So I don't mind that as a feel if that's something that you need to work on, getting your body to kind of turn through the shot. But there's lots of things that need to happen before that, right? So, if you're someone who's not shelling out the club, that's not really going to work for you because you're just going to steepen it even more, right? So, yes, the hands work to the left as you're coming through contact, but what we have to understand, here's how I recommend looking at your golf swing. Don't look at random golf tips like move your hand to your pocket. Look at what are your ball flight and contact issues, and then do things specifically in your swing that directly correlate to fixing those ball flight and contact issues. That's how you improve. You don't improve by just taking a random tip, because you don't even know what that's doing, right? Because odds are most people would take that tip and probably hook it or pull it or something like that because they're going to get their face in their path too far to the left. Now, if you're someone whose path is going too far to the right and the face is open, you're hitting big block slices, that might be a great feel for you to have, right? That may directly correlate to what's going on. So look at what your ball flight and contact issues are. And by that, I mean, are you making ball first contact? Are you making center face contact? What is your ball flight? When your ball flight now, you may normally, let's say 70% of your shots, you hit the ball flight that you're intending. I'm talking about when you don't hit the ball flight. Because that's really what golf is. It's about managing misses, right? So we want to kind of make those misses a little bit smaller, so that way you can be a little bit more consistent with things. So look at what your ball flight and contact issues are, and then work on something directly related to that. Outside of that, it's really just the top speed golf system, making sure that the major pieces are in place. Everything else is just kind of tinkering to get your ball flight and contact to be where it needs to be. So that's how you want to go about things, not just random tips. Should the right leg stay flexed, bent in a full turn, or straighten? Right-handed golfer. For most golfers, it needs to straighten out some because you're going to have a hard time turning if you don't, and the turn is really, really important. Unless you just have a really, really flexible spine, you're not likely, or you are a very, very powerful individual. Then I don't really recommend trying to keep your hips locked, because if you're not a very powerful person, then what's going to tend to happen is you're going to tend to put a lot of torque on your back, on your spine, to try to get turn when you could just very easily just turn your hips. You're also not likely going to get very much depth. So I think the overwhelming majority of recreational golfers are going to benefit from straightening out that right leg in the backswing, assuming the right leg you're talking about is your trail leg, right? So yeah, I don't recommend trying to keep your hips locked. You're gonna free up your lower body. If you keep the lower body locked, you're asking for back injuries. Is really what it's going to come down to. Free up your lower body. It's going to help you to turn more. It's going to help you to create more power. It's going to help you to have a healthier golf swing. Yeah, for sure. No problem, John. All right, we got about 30 minutes left if we have any more questions. If not, no worries. If you're just joining the office hours, I'm just waiting for a question to be asked. So if you got questions, feel free to ask. If not, no worries. All right, so we got a question here from Cal Bear. It says, someone asked this the other day, but I missed the answer. I can turn my shoulders more than 90 degrees with no ball. With the ball, not so much. Thoughts? So if you ever miss the answer to a question, we do archive off all the office hours. So if you go to the instruction tab, then if you go to office hours from there, you can go to the office hours highlights page on the if you scroll down the office hours highlights page, you'll find the archived office hours from there. But yeah, so you can turn your shoulders more than 90 degrees with no ball. Ball, not so much. Thoughts. So what you have to do, and I would have to kind of see what's going on there to know for sure. But this happens all the time. I can do it in a practice swing, but I can't do it in a swing with the ball. Well, the reason is that when you hit a ball, you have to get the club working through a certain area, right? You have to make ball first contact. You got to make center face contact. You have to have a square club face. You have to get the club working down on a good arc and things like that. When you do a practice swing, none of that matters. You can totally just swing completely up here, and and you think it's normal. So what I would try to do is I would try to basically gradually work toward a full turn with a ball, right? So you can do a progression of drills. So what you can do is you can start out with, okay, I'm going to do a pause swing where I go to the top of that pause, no ball. I'm just going to make sure I got a good turn, and I'm going to come around to a full finish, right? That could be a good first iteration. Then what you can do is you can put a tee on the ground, and you can do the same thing. Go to the top, pause, and then click the tee, right? Get to where you can do that pretty easily. Then what you can do is you can put a ball on a tee. Now, if you're hitting off of a mat, you don't have to do that. But hitting off the ground, it makes it a little bit easier to hit it off of a tee. So you can put a ball on a tee. Again, go up to the top, do a pause, make sure you have a good full shoulder turn, then make a downswing from there. Get to where you can do that. Then what I would do is I would work toward minimizing that pause, shortening that pause, right? So maybe right now you're doing like a hard pause at the top to make sure you have it, and then you go down. Then you could go to where it's a little bit more smoothed out, or a much shorter pause. Then you can do where it's more of a fluid swing. So there's levels to it. I think the biggest mistake that a lot of people make in trying to change things to their swing is they get to where they can do a motion like what you're talking about. I make a full turn, but now when I put the ball there, I can't. But then they just go straight to full speed with the golf ball. But there's levels to it. We have to gradually progress toward it. So basically what it comes down to is you want to regress to where you can actually do the motion, and then you get better at that, and then you progress it gradually from there. So that's what I'm talking about with the progression. You start with a pause, right? With no ball, no nothing. You're just making sure that you're getting the full turn, and then you're just making a downswing. Right? Doesn't matter if you hit the ground or anything like that. That's like the lowest level, right? And then you'd work toward clipping a tee, right? Or just brushing the ground if you're on a mat or something like that, or making sure that you're brushing the ground where it is. Because a lot of times when I see people, they'll take practice swings off of mats, right? And there'll be no ball there, but I'm going to put a ball here just so you can see, like, this is where I set up, right? But then when they make their downswing, their club's coming through right here, right? So when you're making that progression, you want to make sure that you are actually swinging the club through near the impact zone, not to a place where you would be missing the golf ball, right? Because then that's still level one, basically, right? So make sure that you are coming through, getting that club to work through that impact zone. Once you get it working through that impact zone, add the golf ball. Do the same thing. You may need to go slow. Right? Go slower, because there's lots of forms of regression. There's going slower, right? Because the reality is if you can't do it slow, then you're not going to be able to do it fast, right? Removing the golf ball, right? Because the reality is, right, if you can't do it without a ball, you're not going to be able to do it with a ball. Another one is doing it in a pausing swing where there's like a key checkpoint. In this situation with a full turn, doing a full, doing the pause at the top, that's kind of the sticking point, right? That's a great place to do the pause on that one. So, because the reality is if you can't do it in a pausing swing, you're not going to be able to do it in a fluid swing, right? Another one is taking a shorter swing. Now, in this situation, that obviously wouldn't work because the goal is to take a longer swing. So you wouldn't really use that in this one, but in some situations, it's good. So for shaft lean, for example, I like to start out with shorter swings, right, with the shaftling, and then work up to longer and faster swings. So, because again, the reality is if you can't do it in a shorter swing, you're not going to be able to do it in a longer swing. So those are all forms of regression, and you have to, you can take some from all of those or from one of those, but basically you want to take as little regression as you can and be able to do the movement correctly, because that's the most important thing. Whenever you're working on something, this is another big problem that people have with working on their swings and changing their swings. And I experienced this with a lot of students, is that they just won't regress to where they can actually do the movement correctly. You have to get to where you're doing the movement correctly. I know it sucks that it's not going to be something that you can take to the golf course right now, but a lot of times when you're working on changing your swing, it's not going to make it to the golf course for a while because you have to put in the reps. Now, that doesn't mean you can't go play golf, because that's the next question a lot of people have. Well, what am I supposed to do? I have league this week. You just go out there and make the swing that you know how to do right now that helps you to get the ball to go where it wants to go, right? That's what it is. If trying to do, let's say you're trying to get shaft lean, right? And let's say, when you try to get shaft lean, even though you may not necessarily be getting shaft lean or a lot of shaft lean, or maybe you're just getting a little bit more, if that's helping you to hit great shots, then by all means do that. Because I think a lot of people have this idea that, they tried to get shaft lean and they hit good shots, right? And then they look at it on video and then they see it doesn't look any different. Well, that's because you're not doing it, right? So you have to regress to where you can do it, and then you build it up from there, right? So that's the idea with this. The shoulder turn, you regress to where you can do it, do a pause swing at the top, no ball, then gradually build up. That's the way you do with anything. With anything you want to change in your swing, that's what you got to do. Now, some things are easier than others. I think changing the release pattern is probably one of the most difficult things to change. If you're coming into contact and you have no shaft lean at contact, that's a very difficult thing to change, right? It takes time, it takes repetition, it takes hard work to do that. That's why you see a lot of people who don't have it, because it's hard to change that, especially if you've been playing golf for a long time. But there's levels to it. If you regress to where you can do it, put in the reps, and then gradually progress it faster and faster and faster, or other levels of progression, you gradually work it more and more toward, what would be a full speed, full length with a golf ball kind of swing, right? You gradually start working it toward that. Over time, you're gonna get there. You're just gonna take some time and repetition. And if you're not willing to do that, then don't worry about fixing your swing, because you're just not gonna do it. If you're not gonna put the time and the reps in, it's just not gonna happen. I wish I could tell you. If you look at anybody or talk to anybody who's really good, who's like a scratch handicap, and ask them about how they got to where they are. They didn't just jump off the couch and they're a scratch handicap. It's not how it works. They worked their tail off to get there. It takes to be good at something. And to change something, it takes hard work, repetition that a lot of people aren't willing to do. But if you're willing to do it, then you can make it happen. But if you're not, then I would just work on skill. Now that takes time as well, but it's easier to work on skill. It's generally more fun to work on skill. And that's really what the ball striking masterclass is. The ball striking masterclass, if you haven't done the ball striking masterclass, that's a course that's all about acquiring skill. So there's a difference between technique and skill. Technique is how you move, right? That would be like making a change to your swing, like a physical change to your swing, a technical change, right? So that might be making a bigger turn. That might be getting lag. That might be shaft lean, releasing the club out in front, right? Basically the top speed golf system, that is a technical program, right? It's a program that gets you into the positions that we see every single great player in, right? So, stable fluid spine, power turn, every single great player has that. Even the players, if we talk about power turn, people say, well, John Rahm doesn't have a good power turn. He does actually. he gets his shoulders to 90 degrees. Now, compared to his peers, he's below average for a pro, right? But compared to most of the people that I see in online lessons, he's got as good, if not better, of a turn than most of those golfers, right? And then the other side to that is that if you can hit the ball 300 yards turning like John Rahm does, then by all means do that. But most people are turning less than John Rahm, and they're not hitting it very far at all. And that's very difficult to play good golf when you do that. So distance makes a huge difference in handicap. It's really the number one correlation to handicap. So yeah, you gotta put in the work. I know this is kind of a little bit of a went off on a tangent there a little bit, but the technique side, that's the Top Speed Golf system. Skill, that's the ball striking masterclass. So technique is how you move. Skill is your ability to control the way that you move, right? So that means your ability to control how open or closed the face is at impact. Your ability to control how the club is arcing down to the ball. Your ability to control where you hit the ball on the face. Your ability to control where you hit the ground in relationship to the ball, right? Now, proper technique makes acquiring skill easier, right? So, for example, let's say that you have, kind of a stand up out of your posture and flip the hands golf swing. Well, if you do that, you can absolutely hit great golf shots, right? I think some people have this idea that you cannot hit good golf shots if you come out of your posture. You absolutely can. Most of you are probably coming out of your posture, and most of you have hit good golf shots, right? Or pretty much all of you have hit good golf shots before, right? So again, what it requires to hit a good golf shot, it takes ball first contact, center face contact, and then your face in your path, meaning the direction the club face is pointing versus the direction the club head is moving through impact. If you have those in alignment to get the shot that you're looking for, right? So if you're wanting to hit a dead straight shot, you need to have your face square and you need to have your path pretty neutral at 0 coming through contact. If you want to hit a draw, you need to have your path in to out relative to the target. You need to have your face open to the target but closed to the path. That's going to produce a ball that will start to the right of your target and then draw back toward your target, right? So that's what needs to happen. You can make those things happen coming out of your posture, right, and flipping the club. You can absolutely make those things happen. So, but that sort of technique makes it difficult, right? So if you upgraded your technique to staying in your posture and not raising your hands so much through contact, then the ability to control your face and your strike and things like that will get better. Will likely get better, right? So that's why technique is important. Now, sometimes technique is required. So let's say, for example, that you are someone that comes way over the top, right? You come way over the top, and you want to hit draws at the target. It would be very, very difficult to be able to control that from that. So you would want to develop the technique to shallow up the club, get it working from the inside, and things like that. Let's say that you have a lot of club head speed and you just hit sky balls. Every ball is just a moon ball and you have no ability to control it, right? Well, in that situation, it may be good for you to work on getting the club to release out in front and whatever goes into that, because it may not be as simple as just getting the club to release out in front. There may be things that you're doing that are the root cause as to why you're not able to do that. So, yeah, that's kind of how you have to look at things. I think that what a lot of people do is they get on YouTube and they look at random tips and they go out and they try a random tip, and sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't, and that's how they go about improving their golf game. That is a really tough way to improve. You're more than likely just going to kind of stay about the same if you do that. If you want to get better, if you want to get better on your own, what I'd recommend you do is you work through the Top Speed Golf system, the 20-minute shallow fix, the 20-minute distance fix. These are the courses that help you to do the technical things that all the best players in the world are doing, right? And then I also recommend the ball striking masterclass. So Top speed golf system, that's going to be a technical course that's going to get your body in the correct positions, the most important positions that we see the best players in, right? The 20-minute shadowing fix is going to help you to get that club. It's gonna basically upgrade how you're bringing the club down, right, to the ball, right. The 20-minute distance fix is all about helping you to get more club head speed. So that's to help you hit the ball farther. It's one of the most important things to playing good golf is hitting the ball long, right? And then the ball striking masterclass, that's your skill based course. That's where you take what you're doing with your swing and you improve your ability to control your strike location, your ground contact, your club face control, and your club path control. Right? You improve you do drills to improve those abilities. The ball striking masterclass, that's really how most of the best players practice. Most of the best players aren't making huge swing changes. A lot of times they're just making little tweaks here and there, right? Because they're already doing the major things in the golf swing that are the most important. They're already shallowing out the club. They already have lots of club head speed. They already are doing the top speed golf system, right? And really what they can do to improve is to maybe tweak their technique to maybe make things a little bit easier to control, right? That's a lot of times what they're doing is they're just tweaking or they're just working on building skills. They're just taking the swing that they have and improving their ability to control things, right? So that's what the ball striking masterclass is. If you stick to those things and you don't fill your mind with all the gobbledygook that's on the random tips and stuff there on YouTube, you will improve, right? You absolutely will improve. But if you just kind of take a YouTube video, then go to the range and try it, and then it works or it doesn't work, or it helps or it doesn't help, then you go to the next time, it's just you're gonna have a hard time tracking that improvement. A lot of times you're just gonna plateau. You're just gonna stay right where you are. Or you're gonna have some pretty big peaks and valleys, right? You might have where, okay, I made this little tweak to my swing, and now I'm doing it. But then over time, if you continue to do that, because we evolve, you may end up overdoing it, right? And then now you're back in the predicament again where you're hitting the ball bad. Now you're looking for something else, right? Whereas if you just stick to the top speed golf system, you stick to the shallowing course, you stick to the speed course, you stick to the ball striking masterclass, that's everything you really need from a full swing perspective to be good. Now, obviously, there's the short game as well, right? You can go into the putting system, work on the short game there, or the chipping mastery, the wedge system. We have those things as well, and those will all help benefit your game as well. All right, we'll go ahead and wrap it up right there since we don't have any new questions. We'll be back here Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Everybody have a great weekend, and I will talk to you all next time.